E aloha e kai ala ai ka ama ama. Ai ka ala ai ka lawalo ai ka ho'omoi.
Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain, and the waving wheat can sure smell sweet when the wind comes right behind the rain.
So welcome back for Vignette 3, and we're going to be doing more landscape, if you will, reading. You should be pretty close to being an expert on reading landscapes right now, but the most important thing in this particular part of this series is we're going to be now building on all these experiences that we've had and formally building on this packet that I hope you've had a chance to read and look through, okay, before this vignette, if you will. If not, hey, that's okay. Still have it handy, and if you don't, listen along, and I think you're still going to glean good information. So remember, every place has a different look to it. It has a different read to it, okay? Could be a physical read to it, a functional, economic, historic. Could be issues, okay, and could be human cultural. So no matter where you travel, no matter what photos you use in your classroom, or no matter what experiences your students have, it might for sure plug in to one or more of those particular reads on the landscape. For instance, you know, Chinatown, that could be basically most of those, when you're talking about functional, economic, historic, could be issue related, and obviously it is a human cultural type, if you will, look to it, okay? And of course that particular bottom left photo that you're looking at on the screen, remember, bring stuff back to your area, bring stuff back, whether it's controversial or not, to your local area or to your local region or state. This one happens to be an older photo of what today is a Superfund cleanup site. This one happens to be, believe it or not, those are not mountains. They are, yeah, but they're mountains of waste, L-E-A-D, lead waste, or if you will, tailings, okay? Back during World War I and World War II, this particular place called Pritchard, Oklahoma, basically had an industry that used lead, processed lead, for all kinds of weapons and bullets and machinery and things of that nature. And today it is a huge Superfund cleanup site, impacted, of course, the aquifer, the river, all kinds of wildlife around that area, and of course those homes are no longer there. Read. How do you read a landscape? So we're going to keep looking at these places differently. We're going to be applying more and more tools. We're going to sort of stack things up on one another here so you can go back to your classroom and you can have all kinds of stuff to use. And of course we're going to be looking at those everyday places, sometimes places that we drive by, sometimes places we don't pay a whole lot of attention to, and the geo packet. This is where we're really going to concentrate on this geo packet, okay? So what have you done before this? I mean, all of us have been involved with using various strategies, tools, concepts in our classroom. You might be using the 5 themes. You might like those. We're not tossing the bathwater and baby out, by the way, together here, where you can do anything you want. I'm just trying to give you a new look, if you will, or help you to have a new look for some of the things that you might want to do in your classroom. I know we've all used primary documents, other strategies, if you will, particular media sources. We do that every day. How about what we just did? The concept of regions. You can take that into your classroom. That would be a great tool to use for whatever lessons you teach. And of course, all these resources we've been talking about are helping you to build that C3 framework, okay? So let's look at a few more tools that we can add, and we're going to get up close and personal with some of these tools. Remember, it's in your geo packet, okay? Lewis axioms, all right? That is a particular tool that you might want to use. You might want to have a little fun with these in your classroom. And so let's concentrate as you read through, skim these, there's 7 of them, and concentrate on the unusual and unique when you read these, okay? And you're reading like, okay, number 1, landscape is a clue to culture, and then say to yourself in your mind, it is generally accepted that, and then read the bullets underneath. Do that for each one. I'll be back with you in a little bit. Skim it, maybe let's take a good quick minute to look these over. So you've had a chance to look over these, if you will, axioms. There's 7 of them. Let's do 2 things at once here. All right. Let's think about the place that you wrote in. You know, the place that you personally put yourself into. Have a little fun with that. Which one of these axioms fits with that particular place that you visited or that you wrote down? All right. Now we're going to do a little practice here, if you will, a little landscape reading by Louis Axioms, and here's a photo. Boom. Yeah, unfortunately, that's me. I had the wonderful opportunity. We have good friends of all places in Iceland, and I was standing next to a glacier that actually was disappearing. And I'm saying, I'm going to ask you, what axiom do you think might fit there? So as you skim this list, we're going to do a little practice here. That might be number 6. I mean, I would think that that would be very intimate with the physical environment there. Probably another one might be 5. Landscape as location. It's important, to look at these actual particular places as far as what is going to be happening at that place. And that location is very, very important because you monitor what's happening to that glacier. I hope you're getting the idea. You can use any picture, you can use any experience in your classroom with your students too. Here's another one. I happen to be at a market in Boston, and that's a very unique place too, because people drive by all the time and they may not know, on the interstate highways that are nearby, that there is that market down there, and it is a pretty important market for those people in that particular area. So, landscape's obscure, I don't know. Landscape is a location, number 5, yeah, you betcha. Landscapes that are intimate with environment, yeah, number 6. Could be historic, I mean, it could be a historic place, number 4. So you get the idea. You get the idea how to read these, okay? So, looking at these photos and looking at anything you do in class, remember, it is generally accepted that, okay. Remember, let's go back to this unique and unusual. What do you think? When you read these, was there anything popped out at you that was, wow, that's unusual? Oh my gosh, that's unique. Let's dwell on that unique. Let's dwell on that unusual as you read those axioms. And, I can't help but think, you said to yourself, landscapes, number 2, look at number 2. Landscapes is unity and equality. And let's read that. Okay, it is generally accepted that, all items in human landscapes, without exception, reflect that culture, no matter how seemingly important or not. Wow. So if you really think about it, you're going to say, what? McDonald's? What does that have to do with our culture? Well, okay, just think of how many McDonald's are out there representing our culture, if you will. So that's why Lewis says McDonald's is just as important as a historic site in Washington, D.C., as all others. So when you're looking at both the vernacular and popular and traditional landscapes, all of that's important. So, wow, McDonald's is just as important as the Jefferson Memorial? Oh my gosh. And remember, as Lewis says, there's no such thing as a culturally uninteresting landscape. So this is something you could really have a lot of fun with your students as far as thinking about every common day places. Wow, we sure have a lot of McDonald's. That must represent what we really do as a culture, doesn't it? Okay. Let's do some more landscape reading in your landscape packet. We're going to be warming up a little bit as what I call the ABC stuff, okay? Stuff to think about in everyday places. I'm going to use again my local example, and again and again and again. I encourage you to use your local examples. But so here we go. Pretty much, when I look at this particular landscape, this is our university campus. We're blessed to have quite a garden crew, if you will, and we have all kinds of iconography. But, all historic and current landscapes, they create impressions and memories, don't they? I mean, you remember places because of the memories you have from them. And of course, all these intangible characteristics, sometimes they mean a lot too. You carry those with you the rest of your life, Impressions that could be positive, this, or negative, and of course they can involve sights and smells and actions, all kinds of things that conjure up, if you will, those landscapes to you again and again and again. This would be a great example of maybe, do I see a certain type of architecture in the distance? Maybe, I don't know. As far as the building uses and focus, I'm going down A, B, C, D, I'm going down this list. I'm looking at basically what is, the economic focus here. Is there any that's represented? Of course, indirectly there is, as far as students coming to the campus. What about green spaces? I'm looking at the G's now. So you get the idea. You can use this particular sheet as one of your, if you will, tools in your classroom anytime you would like. And so anything you do, let's not do maybe urban setting. Let's go ahead and do, if you will, a village or a rural setting that may be nearby you or something like that. And take this page and say, what is there? I'm looking at technology. It doesn't appear that there's much technology there. I'm looking at things as far as, I don't know, maybe we could look at perceptions to the insider, outsider. To somebody outside of this village, it's called El Cerrito, and it happens to be in New Mexico. But somebody driving in from the outside will look at this place and go, ugh. But maybe somebody that lives here says, man, this is home. You look at it and say, well, what resources are here? Maybe looking at it, letter R. You look at this and you go, wow, I don't see a whole lot of resources. But in fact, they do a lot of farming and a lot of irrigation in this particular area. What about historic preservation? Are any of these buildings worthy of, preserving? What about all kinds of other things that you look at as A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever? Are there any issues associated with this place? You get the idea. This ABC sheet is another C3 tool to use, okay, to look at as far as any kind of place, any kind of landscape, and describe it. That's why I call it A to Z. And of course, what you could do to these is add or create your own ABC list. Or why not have your students create, hey, look at this, give me some ABCs as far as what you think is in this particular photo or this particular landscape. It doesn't have to be rural. It could be urban. And boy, you can come up with a whole lot of different ABCs associated with that. So use this in your classroom. Might be a helpful tool. All right, how about even more tools? Let's go. So you've read a place, that's Lewis Axums. You found out what particular factors make that unique. Then you described a little bit more using the ABC sheet. You can use either one of these separately or in conjunction, doesn't matter, in your classroom. And of course now what we're going to do is we're going to be looking at what I call signatures, all right? And so here we go. Let's clarify our thoughts. Let's choose a singular focus or a signature of a particular place. All right, let's do that. So here we go. Essence. What makes a place tick? Again, I call it a signature. Now, of course, those people that visit Cuba, those are people that are lucky enough to visit Cuba, they say, oh, they come back home and say, oh my gosh, all those old cars, they're phenomenal, they're fantastic. Is that the real signature? Is that the real focus of that place, Cuba, which is 90 miles south of the United States? It may or may not be. So get where I'm going with this? Signatures. So landscape is a signature. Let's go back. Top picture here on the right. Let's go back to my campus. My campus promotes a particular signature by its architecture, by its iconography, making it unique, branding it. Or let's look at the bottom right-hand picture, okay? That common uniqueness, really you have to look up close and personal, because sometimes landscape traits, you can visually identify that landscape and say, ooh, is that important to that landscape? Yeah, you betcha. That's Houston, and that's all the, if you will, chemical and oil, I should say in this case, oil refineries and all the chemical, if you will, places and businesses that are there. So, wow. So every place has a common uniqueness to it, no matter where you are, no matter where you are. Let's look at another page in your packet. So think about your specific place. Remember that place you put yourself into? So, we're going to do two things at once here. I'm sure you can remember that place that you did. Let's talk about the signature of a place. Let's talk again about its importance or its focus or its essence. All synonymous, all synonymous. So let's take time to skim again 10 of Meining's interpretations, another tool that you might want to take back into your classroom, okay? And let's look at that real quickly here. So looking at Meining's interpretations, which of Meining's 10 interpretations best describes your place? We're always going to be trying to take it back to your place, your thoughts, your area, your students. Just pick one of these. I mean, is your place that you picked, is it a place of wealth? Is it a place that's number 6, by the way? Is it a place that's historical, number 8? I'm working my way a little bit backwards here. Is it a place that probably has problems? I don't know, maybe not. Number 5, is it a place that really screams, hey, this is nature. Nature is dominant, number 1. So this is a nice way of trying to really be specific on places and narrowing it down to the signature, if you will, or the essence of it. Let's read another place here, okay? So what would be the signature of that place that you're looking at? And of course, this place we're going to visit very quickly. It is going to be what we call Campus Corner. As we visit it, I want you to think about, when we're out there, what is the essence of this place? Hey, here we are on Campus Corner. This is called Campus Corner for a particular reason. You guys can figure this out, of course, when you're looking at these interpretations, but the reason is because it's really somewhat of an institution here at OU and this university as far as servicing faculty and as far as servicing students. But remember those interpretations. As you look at this place called Campus Corner down the street and of course behind me, remember you've got all of those things to consider. Is this problematic? Is this economic? Is it historical? Is it cultural? Matter of fact, it's all of the above. So you be the ones to make the decision as far as whatever landscape you're in, whatever you want your students to learn or to absorb, go to a place, be as part of that place, and have them determine what the heck it's all about. Personally, I would like to think of this place as more of a historical cultural district, if you will, because it, after all, is called Campus Corner and it's been around for a long time. But remember, being a geodetective, you can do it on your own as far as figuring out how to interpret this place to your, if you will, classroom needs. Hey, see you soon. So, what do you think? I mean, is the essence of anything we look at, is it educational, problematic, habitat, economic, political, aesthetic, historical, symbolic? And we could take any picture there and we could plug in not only Campus Corner, but anything. So I don't know what your thoughts were, but basically, pretty much, I would have to say, what do you think? All right, you thought about it? Is Campus Corner educational? I don't know. I don't think so. Is it problematic? Yeah, to some people it's problematic because basically it's crowded. Basically, especially on football game days, I mean, there's all kinds of things going on that people maybe not like as far as throwing trash on the ground even after the games. Can you find a parking spot? That could be a problem. Is it a place that sort of screams habitat? I don't think so. What about economics? Yeah, you betcha. With all those restaurants, with all the little boutiques and shops and things of that nature. Is it a political, does it scream, here is a political place? Not really. Is it aesthetic? I would not certainly think that that is aesthetic. Historical? Yeah, actually it does have a historical component to it. It was one of the first places near our university that was established for students to go. Is it symbolic? Well, I guess you can argue a little bit on that one. And is it a cultural kind of phenomenon? Yeah, it is in a sense, adjacent to our university. So you get the idea. And of course, showing you this photo, you can do it with so many other things and so many other photos and experiences that people have. Moving on. So after reading the interpretations, landscapes, places, everything pretty much, we hear these words landscape, place, but both of those words are pretty much interchangeable. However, if you want to get picky about it, place usually refers to something smaller. Place refers to something where we can manage it a little bit better, okay? A specific study area, if you will, all right? Landscape is usually more broad, usually generally larger, and, is associated with regions, if you will, all right? Moving on. Well, we've had all of these vignettes, and by now you should be a total expert on what geography really is. If you have another person in the room, or if you're in a room with a large group of people, maybe divide yourself up. Give you about a minute. So, all right, here we go. What is your definition at this point of geography, or how it fits with your course, how it fits with the subject that you teach? But let's focus on that word, geography. Let's write some stuff down that you think geography is right now at this point. So your definition of geography right now, okay, maybe you talked a lot about, maybe it's a physical side of geography. Maybe it's that stage we talked about earlier, okay? Maybe you talked a lot about, or your definition has in, I should say, human modifications. Maybe that's part of your definition. Maybe you included words like patterns, places, issues, structures. I don't know. That could be part of it. Maybe you've also included the study of regions or areas or things like that. I would presume. Maybe you included maybe maps and things of that nature as far as your definition. Maybe you've included things to deal with application. So, pretty broad-based definitions. I would guess, maybe taking a hunch here, that your definition includes at least one of these, if you will, attributes, okay? All right. So your definition that you have written down, hope you had a little time with it, probably included one of the most important, I think, C3 tools that you can have in your toolbox, and that's the GFL, or Geography for Life, if you will, Elements and Standards. Here's what it looks like. You can order it online from National Geographic. You might even have a copy of it. You might even be using this already. But I like to think of it as a really nice, inclusive way to think about everything geography, if you will. Let's go ahead and turn to page 8 in your packet. And of course, that page 8 is going to have a modification on this. It's the way I look at it. If you look at these elements and standards, I like to take it from that physical stage like we talked about earlier in the first vignette, the physical stage, putting people on it and modifying it. So that's why my E numbers look a little bit different than the publication, than the original publication. But let's work with these. E1, E2, E3, and then you're going to see the S numbers underneath. We'll talk about what those numbers are and the importance of those numbers are also. So this is a modification, remember, of the Geography for Life. This is a modification, which I like to do, and I like to think of it this way, all right? So we're pulling everything together now. We're taking all of the things we've talked about in this series, and we're looking at it now through the eyes of these elements and these standards. We're going to look at the total place now, if you will. All landscapes and places, they can be observed by these 6 elements. So if you look at this sheet, these 6 elements will sort of take care of all geographic thoughts. All right, page 8. Physical systems, that's that stage we created, right? And that's all of the plants, the animals, the rocks, the hydrology. Remember that stage that we created, all those physical attributes? That's represented in that first element. So maybe your lesson might focus in your classroom on physical systems. Who knows, maybe your lesson might focus on human activities or how we modify the land. That's represented in E2, element number 2 on page 8. Maybe your particular lesson in your classroom might focus on patterns or historical things that have happened, human structures and settlements that have been built, okay? Maybe that's a focus. These, I call these the really 1, 2, and 3, I call them the big 3. Because if you have the land and you modify that land and you create, if you will, signatures on that land, you can't help but form and put it in sort of a box. Remember that box? Area of common characteristics. You can't help but form a construct that talks about places and regions. So element 1, element 2, element 3 all actually help us think about what? That place or that region. Places and regions. Look at E4. Create manageable common units like we've talked about. Of course, it has boundaries that include both physical and human characteristics in a cultural context. Now we can study it. Now we can map this stuff. So in your classroom, you can map and apply everything you've learned. Maybe you would like to concentrate on maps as part of your lesson, all right? So the world in spatial terms is represented in that element. And then what, as any classroom teacher will say, hey, I want my kids to be lifelong learners. How do you do that? We try to apply everything we do in our classroom. And of course, geography is the same way. We're going to be using element 6 to apply, to take and implement and understand even further, maybe to the larger community, what's happening as far as geographic concepts are concerned. So there you have it. Those are the 6 E's, or the 6 elements. But wait, he said, but wait. What about those S numbers? What about those numbers underneath, the standards? I like to call them the 18 pieces of meat on the bones, because those S numbers actually clarify or describe that element above it. For instance, if you look at physical systems, you're going to see S1 and 2. That describes a little bit more detail, doesn't it? Physical systems. Look at, let's jump down. Let's look at basically E4, places and regions. Well, S11 and 12 and 13 basically describe or clarify that element above it. So each of those S numbers really are looking at it a little bit more in detail, what is above it. So S numbers below describe the big E number above, if you will, all right? Each standard describes the most important attributes of that particular element. Can't hammer that home enough. So that's a way to look at these standards and elements. So hey, let's have a little fun. What? You know where I'm going with this. All right. What standard, yeah, that's an old-time gas station, believe it or not, on Route 66. What standard, okay, is associated with these places? So let's do a little practice, all right? What standard? By the way, what standard is associated with that standard, that old standard gas station? Huh? I don't know. I mean, you know, maybe the standard has to do, I don't know, with maybe something dealing with human systems. Maybe that was the culture of the times to design gas stations like that. S7. Maybe it has to do with a particular characteristic of a particular place along Route 66. Under E4, places and regions, maybe that gas station represents S11. The human characteristics of particular places. You know, you can take and use these S numbers. In fact, I like to think the S numbers are far more important than the elements, because once you realize what the standard is, boom, you're going to automatically know what that element is. Here, let's look at a couple more. Oh, what standard is associated with that trash heap or that dump? Ugh, that looks pretty weird, doesn't it? Maybe It might be something dealing with, I don't know, maybe S10, cooperation and conflict among people. Because, hey, listen, nobody wants a dump in their backyard. So are people going to cooperate and say, oh yeah, sure, I want that in my backyard? I don't know. Maybe it could be S10. I don't know, maybe it could be something else. Maybe it could be something dealing with modification. Maybe it could be something dealing with, spatial distribution. I don't know. How about, I love number 13, how culture and personal experiences influence people's perceptions of places and regions. So S13, what are your perceptions of that place? Your personal experiences of going to a dump. I don't know. And so that could be part of place and region. So you get the idea of what I'm doing. You can take the weirdest picture, the weirdest photo, an example, and you can transfer it to these standards. Once you realize what the standard is, boom, you might be talking obviously about the E, or the big picture element above it. So I think standards are far more important at times than really looking at those elements. Standard or element? Uh-oh, you know where I'm going. What about your place? What about page 7? What standard is associated with your place? I've got other photos up here. I mean, it could be, the city that's nearby you. It could be some disgraceful thing or some issue located in your area, maybe stuff that washes up on the beach. It could be something as gorgeous as, the flowers or the particular, if you will, landscape near you that represents the physical part, the beauty of where you live. I don't know. It could be something that is a natural phenomenon that happens in your place. Of course, you know where I'm going with this. I love my Hawaiian folks, so it could be representing, of course, the volcanic activity there. It could be something very historic, and it could be very controversial as far as Hawaii is concerned. And of course, your place too, wherever you live. And this was an old Dole canning factory shot. So here we go. You can take these S numbers and you can say, hey, what standard is associated with that particular activity? And of course, it's going to lead to what? It's going to lead to you discovering the larger element which is above it. So have a little fun with these. Take this into your classroom and realize that here you are. You're doing total geography as one of your tools. So let's review, okay? Your C3 toolbox. You got lots of ammunition now. We've done 1 and 2 and 3, if you will, vignettes. So you got lots of stuff for having your students inquire and ask questions. You've got tons of stuff. Hopefully this will do what we all want to do in our classrooms. No matter what level you teach, we want to inspire your kids to ask those questions. We want to engage those students. That's what all this is about. Whatever you take away from this series, hopefully you'll take away some stuff that'll help your kids ask questions and really, really involve them in what you're doing. Of course, what do we do in this series? We've used all kinds of photos and maps, and we talked about concepts. You can research things you've all used in your classes, primary and other sources and strategies. And then, of course, I hope I'm introducing you to some new things, some new lesson building blocks. What did we do? We did regions. We did ABCs. We did axioms. We did interpretations. And of course, these GFL elements, Geography for Life, elements and standards. So keep adding to your toolbox. That's what this is all about. Keep adding. Next time, whoa, now we're going to really have some fun because we are going to be looking up close and really start defining what this thing is as far as C3 is concerned. So we're going to fine-tune C3, if you will, and we're going to make sure that you folks take all of this into your classroom. So, hey, until next time, we'll see you then.